getting more Spuds on Havana store shelves. That's the goal of a group of Idaho civil and government leaders.
But there is plenty of work to be done to improve relations between the gem state and Cuba. 6 on Your Side's Ian McGrady has more.
The distance between Boise and Havana, 2,385 miles, and more than 50 years of constrained relations between Washington and Havana.
You have to sign a legal affidavit telling the federal government why you're going to Cuba. Make sure you have a travel itinerary that complies with federal regulations, or you may be subject to a penalty up to $250,000 or 10 years in jail.
It was Sun Valley resident and author Ernest Hemingway who opened our eyes to the Latin country.
He loved both places dearly. He died in Idaho, but he spent more time living in Cuba than any other place in his entire life.
And now, these political, cultural, and business leaders at the launch of the Engage Cuba-Idaho State Council, a new effort to turn all those miles into a pathway of exchange between Idaho and Cuba.
That there is enormous opportunity, both for this country and our companies, and certainly for companies in the state of Idaho, but also for the Cuban people who are culturally just extraordinary.
The undoing of America's foreign policy of isolation towards Cuba begins with President Obama telling the world in 2014 that the United States would re-establish diplomatic relations with Cuba. A giant step towards thawing the Cold War policies which froze relations to our tropical neighbor just 90 miles south of the United States. He said we'd be building an embassy in Havana, and now the question is how to change laws that hinder relations and trade.
This is a new day. Es un nuevo día.
But perhaps one day people like this man who love Cuban cigars might enjoy perhaps buying them in downtown Boise rather than having to fly to Havana himself to get them.
I'd rather buy him here. It's safer and legal. The cigar I really like that's Cuban made is a Toronto's.
Getting down to business seems to be half of the equation, and getting there seems to be half the fun for now. Ian McGrady, 6 on Your Side.